Unfortunately, I let myself do it, ladies and gentlemen of Mountaineer Nation. I let myself believe that West Virginia was capable, under head coach Neil Brown, of playing up to their potential, playing the kind of mistake free yet entertaining, competitive, that kind of ball that would keep them in it against an Iowa State Cyclone team, another ranked opponent. Now 20 times under head coach Neil Brown, and only 3 times has West Virginia come up successfully. This is the recap show. Iowa State defeating the Mountaineers 28-16, increasing their overall record to 6-0, 3-0 in conference play, shooting right up the rankings, at least in the Big 12 standings, right there alongside BYU with an impressive double-digit victory also on Saturday, beating Mountaineers 28-16. West Virginia falling to 3-3 overall, 2-1 in conference play. Now an ever-important conference loss, that blemish is everything on West Virginia's rest of the prospects of their 2024 season. Now we'll have to fight, claw, prod, practically have to win out. And if it has any sort of a chance to get to a Big 12 championship game, and like the prospects after that loss. I mean, if you weren't already down in the dumps already after that backyard brawl loss, but you get some hope like that, like they're at the end of their rope. Like, I'm going to go to Saturday's game against Kansas State, and that is it. That is the, like, hanging on to a thread. That's the season, I feel like, unfortunately, come Saturday. To see if there's any hope left for this 2024 season, or we're going to have to start analyzing this in the scope of 2022 or 2021, and what kind of, like, I don't want to say moral victories, but individual things do you start to take away from this season? And I don't want to really go down that road. Not yet. I not like Oklahoma State kind of is, as we talked about a week ago, with 3 conference losses, their season practically already in the tubes, and we weren't even at the midpoint of October. But I'm just sad for everybody out there who spent all that, just like the Backyard Brawl, spent all that money to go, got extremely excited, pumped, probably tailgated all day down in Morgantown, trying to honor the coal miners with the blackout coal rush game. An incredible atmosphere at Milan Puskar Stadium, especially in the first quarter. You could tell from TV, and I had some friends who were there and just said that the loudness factor on the field was palpable. So, like, kudos to you, Mountaineer Nation, once again. Unfortunately, this head coach and coaching staff not pulling their weight, not their end of the bargain. And West Virginia comes up with a, double-digit loss at home against a ranked opponent. Now, there's enough blame to go beyond the coaching staff, and that's what I'm going to get into in today's show. But what I have to say to lead this off was, not only did conservative Neil Brown come out in this game, ultra conservative Neil Brown came out in this game. And from the onset, I just wanted to, why did I almost always facetiously say at the start of games under Neil Brown, it's like the Will Ferrell cracking the beer gif from Old School. All right, I'm ready to get hurt again. And that's exactly, what I said before kickoff. And even on that first drive in which West Virginia goes 75 yards on 14 plays, going 7 minutes and 42 seconds, I'm saying, oh no, oh no, oh no. Because I have seen this story before. I've seen this movie, I've read this story, I've seen this movie. I've been here, done that. I have scars so deep that I knew what was coming, even when West Virginia scores on its very first possession. And what I mean by that is I've seen it, and it's so different than, because we knew, like in 2018 under head coach Dana Holgerson and talking about that Oklahoma game. At least in that one's fun. 59-56, you lose, but I mean, incredible offense, moving the ball up the field. Neil Brown truly wants West Virginia to be Iowa. Really does. And it's not, just to use that moniker from the Iowa State game, to that. But that's exactly who West Virginia wants, Neil Brown wants West Virginia to be. He said when he took the job in 2019 that he saw an opportunity for a defensive leader to emerge in the Big 12 Conference, given how the air raid defenseless Big 12 of the late 2010s there, 2017, 2018, even into 2019, but especially that, like, there was an opportunity for a defensive power to rise, and that's the kind of football that he wanted to, and all in the name of some of the other Mountaineer YouTubers out there saying complementary football. Is that this defense, and like, that's the sad thing, is like he wants this program to be a defensive first team, but like that's what he's afraid of, is this defense falling apart. And this is what I have to say is Neil Brown, I texted this to my buddies from WVU-SI, and I stand by it. Neil coaches scared to lose, wanting to win on the margins in one-possession games. The mentality trickles down to the players, and they play tight and lose. Like, that's it. Rinse, repeat. Penn State, Pitt, countless times over these last 6 seasons, and that was the rendition of, fighting Michael Myers. Once again, you just can't kill him. You just can't get this ultra conservatism out of Neil Brown's head, and that he thinks of Iowa State as a Texas, or and it's hard to say this year, but a previous year's Alabama. Like, why do you put these opponents on such a pedestal that you think that we have to play so finesse? We have to win every single snap to then it come down to one possession in the fourth quarter, and that's the way you try to win. Do you not have enough faith in this offense with a fifth-year senior quarterback, with all the upperclassmen on your offensive line, a senior tight end, up-and-comers at the wide receiver position, 2 awesome running backs who could be all-conference caliber? Like, you just don't have enough faith in your offense to try and play with intensity, to play full out, high up tempo, attack the play, attack vertically, and that is what is just so infuriating to me, that even whenever West Virginia scores. So really, let me get into it. I feel as if it was in a 5-play sequence that then you just went, here is where the levees on the dam start to break, and this is going to be a ball game. Unfortunately, it came from a player who I really like and really feel like there are high hopes for in this offense, special teams, using him on defense, however, is Rodney Gallagher. Dropping that ball deep in Iowa State territory in this, I think it was either the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, because this became such a possessions game, and I'll talk about that, that when he dropped that pass that was reviewed, I don't know why it needed to be reviewed. It wasn't like Iowa State was challenging it. But that's the unfortunate thing of college football against the NFL, is that they always want to go to these stupid booth reviews, not even on scoring plays. A simple, a catch that looked good in real time, but just one camera angle shows that the ball hit the ground as he was corralling it in, pressed up against another defender. Incompletion. Michael Hayes trots out for a inside of the 36-yard field goal. Like, he's absolute money, min money for 2 seasons now inside of 40. Shanks it left. 5 plays later, 3 plays later, there's Jalen Noel streaking down the field. I don't know if it was a miscommunication between Jaheim Joseph or someone else in the secondary, but it seemed as if Joseph shaded to one side of the field, and there was over coverage on, I think, 2 wide receivers on one side, and no one was covering. Noel streaking right down the field. Easy pitch and catch there for Rocco Becht. Could have, could have thrown it left-handed, and I feel like he would have got it to him, and he would have scored. Bam, there it was. You had a 14-point swing right then and there. Could have went up 14-0, and again, a possessions game. Could have at least gone up 10-0. Instead, it's 7-7. So, that's what kicked everything off in a poor way, because then it was a game from there, and Iowa State dominated, won the time of possession. West Virginia only had 8 possessions in this game. So let's talk about the bad, because there was bad on both the defense and bad on the offense. About the defense, I feel like, again, that Jalen Noel touchdown just scared Neil Brown from that then and there. Just scared him. I know that happened after that 14-play opening drive that I had talked about of going ultra conservatively, but oh boy, he just tightened up like a raisin. He had no faith in his secondary at that point. Rocco Becht and the Iowa State offense took advantage of it, doing what they wanted to do through the air, running the ball. Iowa State was awesome on third down. That's where I have to give them credit. It just seemed like constantly throughout this game was such a struggle, and such like you wanted to just throw something at your TV. Was West Virginia would have great play on first down, great play on second down, and bam, Iowa State would come away with third down conversion, keep the chains moving, keep the clock going, waste more clock. That's the money down. And Iowa State was money on this night. 9 of 14. Excellent by Rocco Becht playing the Rocco Becht playing the Brock Purdy role within this scheme, within this offense. An 81 QBR, that's exceptional. That's A grade. 18 for 26 for 265 passing yards with a touchdown. He had 8 carries for 15 yards positively, all of that nullified by sacks. But case in point in this game for first down pickups, in which he had to rush the ball, he was a rushing threat and could do it. The other thing, the willingness to tackle Carson Hansen on this night was inconsistent at best. I think that he was the best of the 3 runners. It's just because of his size-speed combination, the way he accelerated through the hole, was able to take tacklers, bouncing off him. Similarly to the way that I feel like C.J. Donaldson can run, just business decisions that West Virginia's tacklers were trying to make, and they just could not bring Hansen down on this day. 20 carries, 96 yards, 3 touchdowns by that sophomore. Excellent job by him. Took the pounding, took the beating, and he was one of the, I would say 3 best players on the field for Iowa State on this night. I would also say the no turnovers forced. There were perfect play calls, just perfect play calls. Anytime Iowa State, needed an effective run play or pass play, they got it whenever they needed it. And West Virginia, unfortunately, just could not get any, you just kept feeling like, all right, a turnover here will change it. A turnover here will change it. We need a turnover here. Never got it on this night. In the second half, Iowa State owned nearly 20 minutes of game clock, and they just burned out West Virginia, burned them down to the ground. The defensive line was, played well. I was a little curious of where T.J. Jackson was, not getting onto the field into the second quarter. Asani Redwood was doing excellent at that point in the game. I don't know if that was just coaching decision by Jordan Leslie and Coach Andrew Jackson of like, okay, well, let's save him more for later in this contest. Let's use Redwood early and, try and use up his potential. And I think they did. They did a pretty decent job at times getting pressure. Even in the run game, they were Fatorma Mulba, I feel like, stood out at some points in this game. Yeah, Bradley with a tackle for loss, T.J. Jackson with a tackle for loss, Redwood with a tackle for loss, and then Sean Martin and Jaheim Joseph split one. So just 4 QB hurries on the night. But again, it was just because so many plays in which Hansen was falling forward, or just Purdy took care of the ball, distributing it to it needed to be, and it was just like the defense didn't. It wasn't an F grade performance. It wasn't like Pitt. Or it like wasn't even as bad as Penn State. I thought for giving up 28 points, you didn't get any sort of help from your offense. If you want to call in the name of complementary football, it's a symbiotic relationship. I feel like a lot of times between an offense's production and output and your defense's performance. And the offense just did not hold up its end of the bargain, kind of feeling almost in the same light as like 2019 Baylor with Austin Kendall at quarterback, like the defense just really giving it their all night. I know that was a closer game in 2019 than this one, but you know what I mean here. It's just once the defense got over the whole Noel touchdown debacle, really it settled in a little bit and played a little bit better defense. So I'm willing to give them a pass because the offense was just awful. I mean, Penn State was bad. That was a bad offensive performance, but against a really good Penn State defense. This was arguably, let's transition to this side of the ball, I think the worst performance by Garrett Green as quarterback at West Virginia. Unfortunately, that I hate to say it for a guy who's a warrior, who's been patient, who, stuck through behind a player who's, I feel like, ultimate caliber that he was better than in Jarrett Deggy, but deciding to stay patient, loyal to the program, waiting for his time and day, and finally getting it. But this just wasn't a good enough performance. A 66 QBR, 50s average, so I think 66 is rather generous. 18 for 32 for 206 yards, a touchdown, 2 picks. Could have had a third, I feel like, in the first half. 10 carries for 87 yards. I feel like the scheme by defensive coordinator of Iowa State, John Haycock, was unlike anything that Green has yet to see, in that the pressure wasn't all that what Penn State was, what Oklahoma brought to the table last year in Norman when West Virginia played them. It wasn't like he was under duress that entire game. It's that they dropped 8 in coverage whenever there was either obvious passing downs or they just guessed right with dropping 8, and Green just couldn't have success finding. Either he was inconsistent with the location and accuracy of his passers, or his pass catchers just weren't creating enough separation, weren't getting open. And there were times the announcer said it was on Green and missing some guys who were open, which has kind of been, not to say a constant theme, but a theme in the losses especially. That Green's just not seeing the field at some points in time, but also just missed some open guys, or guys that he could have fit balls into narrower windows and just missed them. I really think the play of the game, play, but then turned into 2 series that cost West Virginia, were his 2 interceptions. 2 minutes left to play in the third quarter. Iowa State at this point was up 14-10. West Virginia with the ball at the Iowa State 29. It's 2nd and 6, so you don't need to necessarily force anything. And what do you know? Garrett Green throws an interception. That's terrible. The opposite way, Iowa State goes 11 plays before scoring the touchdown. On the play before the touchdown, 3rd and goal at the West Virginia 6. Aiden Garnes is called with this weak holding call that just absolutely is devastating. And that's exactly what Neil Brown's playing to. Trying to play like it's Texas in 2020, of coming down to one final play at the very end in the fourth quarter. And when you play that tight to win on the margins, things like this in officiating can happen. When you play trying not to lose rather than playing to win, this can happen because of the inconsistencies and porous play. It's now been 3 games in which Barrett Cravone, Sorry, I'm not Cravone. No, yes, Cravonne. Cravone Barrett and his crew just were average at best. Not at all like the what was it, Michael Marr, who officiated the Kansas game, or maybe the Oklahoma State game. Yeah, it was the Kansas game. Just it wasn't that great, and that really killed West Virginia. That killed them because West Virginia came up with 3 stops inside the red zone, inside 10 yards, and that kills you. That gives you an automatic first down. West Virginia gives up on the very next play. Hansen, bam, right up the middle, scores, breaks West Virginia's will. So that was the game right there. Even for all that had happened prior to that point. Well, then the next is West Virginia gets the ball back. Yeah, now Iowa State at this point, 21-10. Second play of West Virginia's next drive, Garrett Green interception. So that's it. That's all she wrote. It's so, frustrating. It's an 8-possession game. That's all you get to see. Spend all that day, in the sun, drinking your Truss lagers, cooking some awesome food, pepperoni rolls, and that's the way the game plays out. Oh, there were so many things during the Dana Holgerson era, the detail, the lack of detail in either game management situations, game play, this, that, and the other thing, that would drive you absolutely kicking to Morgan Burns in 2015 against Kansas State, the best player on the field on special teams, when Kansas State was down to its 3rd or 4th string cornerback who was actually a converted wide receiver, so they couldn't pick up a first down. So it's little finite details that under Dana Holgerson absolutely drove you crazy of why West Virginia would lose, especially in some big games. But give me that rather than let's try and slug it out in the mud and thinking we're the Iowa Hawkeyes, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. And the other thing I thought was that West Virginia abandoned the run game in this point. Now I know, and this was something I can't ignore this, is center Brandon Yates with his bad snaps on the day. I don't understand after it's, one might be a fluke. 2, you're uh-oh, there's a problem. By 3, this is a trend and we need to make a change absolutely now. Why, oh why, did it almost get to double digits, I feel with high snaps by Brandon Yates, that Landon Livingston wasn't called upon? Are you, really? Why? I've been very, quick to praise Matt Moore over this last season and a half. I feel that the turnaround, that you could start to really see during 2022 finally manifest in 2023. But do you really not trust your 3rd year redshirt sophomore offensive lineman to go in and snap the ball when Yates is just clearly struggling? And when that was happening, it would stall the offense, couldn't get the run game going. One of my 3 keys to victory was Jaheim White getting to 100 yards. Jaheim White only had 3 second-half carries. 3. C.J. Donaldson had 2. So the run game was stalled, I feel because of the snaps, and then West Virginia under Neil Brown practically abandoned it. I don't know why. I just don't know why. Yeah, and then you only score your 16th point of this game. I know they went for 2, so it really could have been a 28-17 game. So looking closer on the scoreboard than it actually was, you only score with 1 minute and 10 seconds left in this game. Just 28-10. That's the best. That's unfortunately the best that we as West Virginia fans can hope for under this head coach. That they felt so confident after the retention, transfer portal, high school recruiting stage, sold us all throughout the spring that this is the best that they felt with their starters, that they're taking a bit of a different approach to the way that they coached the spring. They felt so good at so many different positions, especially at the starters, going into this season. Well, very clearly, you feel as if then that there is such a ceiling that West Virginia can achieve that either I'm not privy to their NIL situation and what they're able. I know teams like Ohio State, Oregon, Texas, multi-million, close to $20 million payrolls on because of it. So, is West Virginia, a third of that, a quarter of that? And that's what you feel as the leaders, who of the organization who know and are privy to how much that West Virginia has in its total payroll, that you think that this is all that we can afford and this is the best we're going to go out, out there with the players that we have. But even said that, and I'm one, to use a baseball analogy, that always feels as if the team who spends the most money has the best chance of winning. In uncapped there's a reason why the Yankees and the Dodgers, the Red Sox, all those big market teams are always challenging in the championship series and World Series. But having said all that, didn't you feel much more confident in the spring, thinking fifth year senior, this is the best we're going to get out of Garrett Green? Where is there this disconnect from where 2023 ended to what we've seen now over the first 6 games? Because this team doesn't look as good, overall as that last 6 games of 2023, even with including that Oklahoma performance. It's just I know Zach Frazier, Doug Nestor meant a lot. It's hard to replace a guy who goes in the second round of the NFL draft. But, teams do that all the time. Look at some of the turnarounds across college football this year. BYU, West Virginia beat BYU by 30 last year. And now they're in the top 15 in the country. Arizona State, you would have thought, weren't they picked last in the Big 12 preseason poll? You would have thought they were going nowhere as a program. Now transitioning to the Big 12 conference, you got to play, the kind of schedule that they have. Look at what they're doing. Look at Pitt. I hate to bring them up, but why? It's not that hard. It's not as hard as Neil Brown makes it out to seem. This is not rocket science, brain surgery, all of these things. And you're just failing these players at this point. All 5 across the starting line are in their 4th year or older. You're never going to have that again. You're never going to have 3 6-year starting linemen up front. You're never going to have that. Cole Taylor, Garrett Green, a Thunder and Lightning running back combination. The excuses are out. The excuses are done. You are what you are at some point. When you're 3-17 against ranked opponents in your 6th year, how many times did I hear, I feel through 2019 to 2022, about the comparison with Frank Beamer? Frank Beamer back in the 90s or something didn't hit a 6-6 or better season till how many years down the road in his coaching tenure? That is so played out at this point. It is so played out. We're not talking about a 2019 level roster at this point in time. Yeah, I don't think that Jordan Leslie's the right fit at defensive coordinator. Why? Apparently, he decided to, after 2 of West Virginia's best defensive performance of the season, feel the need to switch it up by coaching back down on the field instead of the press box. I don't get paid what he gets paid. And he doesn't have to have the same kind of accountability in his job that I do in mine, apparently. So, for whatever reason, not, again, a terrible defensive performance, but not anything that I would, send that tape into the records like that. That's so great out there. I feel bad, ultimately, at the end of the day, for all of you Mountaineer fans. And I'll include myself on this, another thing that I tweeted this morning. Because usually you get yourself into trouble when you tweet things after you've knocked a few back and West Virginia loses, and especially when they play poorly in a loss. But I felt the same way waking up when I woke up this morning as I did when I went to bed. And I just feel as if Neil Brown has wasted so much of my time, money, patience, mental stability when it comes to as a sports fan. Um, Throughout my mid 20s to now my early 30s. And I'm someone, again, who, as I've said, if you cut me, I bleed gold and blue. So why, should someone who's is less passionate of a fan than me, like, how many Mountaineer, for passionate members of this fan base has West Virginia lost under Neil Brown as head coach because that the coaching contract extension that Shane Lyons gave, that I kept hearing, again, I'll reiterate this, at the end of during the Backyard Brawl, talking to some fans, I kept hearing that West Virginia's got this coal money. They've been putting together this coal money since 2022 when, West Virginia looked as if it was going to be firing Neil Brown. So they have the money. They have the money. Well, it's time to pony it up. It's time to spend it. Let's do this. How much longer is Ren Baker going to let this fan base suffer under this head coach when you know what he is at this point? You know what he's bringing to the table, and you know what the results. Unfortunately, I feel as if the worst case scenario could happen is, I don't want to say worst case scenario, but it's just like I'm thinking about all these situations in which, somehow, some way, some surprise happens. West Virginia is fluttering around that, 6-6 to 8-4, but they lose to Kansas State. They maybe win out. Texas Tech falls apart at the end of the year, so West Virginia hasn't beaten another ranked opponent for another year. You lose the Backyard Brawl. You lose to Penn State. Like, nothing, no goals were achieved, yet that's in this, we can't fire Neil Brown situation. He gets to a Duke's Mayo Bowl and plays a Drake Mayless North Carolina, or that equivalent of 2024. West Virginia somehow wins, and hooray! He's got this coaching contract, that has him go 3 more seasons. And do we really want to spend that $12.5 million worth of coal money, or do we want to put that into NIL resources? He's got a top 40 recruiting class. He's, DeAndre Dessenore's coming in, Scotty Fox at quarterback. He's gotten some D-line recruits that, really are going to be able to contribute early. You have Brody McWhorter coming up. He might be bringing his cousin Bear with him on the offensive line for the 25 class. The future is bright. Trust the climb. Let's do this. That, I guess, there's a lot keeping me up at night, namely a 7-week-old daughter right now. But that is also keeping me up at night. As at this point, October 13th, that the powers that be within the administration are not seeing, or not ready to push the same kinds of buttons that we as fans are. I don't know why. Why are tickets on WVUsports.com still as high as they are? Why are upper deck, top quarter, I talked about this during my off-season series. Why is this top quarter of the upper deck still selling for $95 a piece? Why? I mean, are they just sticking by the adage that, it cost what it cost to get in to see the movie, whether or not it's a good movie or a bad movie, and if those seats go unsold, then so be it. We didn't want to sell them in the first place because people would be coming to the stadium, wear and tear on the seats, wear and tear on the toilets, using the restroom. The opportunity cost of getting them in or keeping them out doesn't make a difference. So we'd rather that seat just go unsold and have the potential of it selling at $95 a piece. Just frustrating. Just frustrating, y'all. Frustrating. I'll end on this because I can't take Like, I'm a passionate, optimistic, happy-go-lucky person. If you know me, and I hope, like, if you see this video, you like me, subscribe to this channel, all that. Come over to the green lot next on Saturday. It's parked kind of like up closer to the green lot parking garage in the handicap section. So come say hi if you're a fan. Love to meet you. Last thing I'll talk about for today's show, because I just want to end it where it is, the future of the quarterback position. So Neil Brown was asked in the post-game press conference about, I don't know exactly what, I went to bed. I didn't stay up and wanted to listen to his coach speak. But the question came up about making a quarterback change, and he just pretty much dismissed it right then and there. Like, why would we do that? I'll tell you why. And here's what I would do. I would give Garrett Green the next game against Kansas State. He's earned it. He deserves it. For what he's put into this program. He deserves that game at home in Morgantown. Depending upon that performance, he's on a kind of like a game-by-game basis. I'd give him the Arizona game too, because of never playing there before. Far away trip. He's a fifth-year senior, mature enough. And Arizona State's beatable, but it's going to be on the road. Like, you have the opportunity with the second bye week that after that game, you could come home 2 weeks to prep for Baylor, who's going nowhere as a program. I don't even know if Dave Aranda is going to last to that point in time in the season. To then potentially you could go to Nico Marchiol. If you're 4-4 with mediocre quarterback play, and I'm speaking about Garrett Green in this place, in this space, and I mean, unfortunately, mediocre, there's degrees and shades of mediocre. Like, we know what Garrett Green is capable of and has that potential. I mean, similarly, I feel like to what Kansas is experiencing with Jalen Daniels. You know what Jalen Daniels is at his best. You know what Garrett Green is at his best. You know what Cam Rising at Utah is at his best. Unfortunately, you're just not getting that, and you can't just be insane and do the same things and expect different results to go to Nico. Because at that point in time, Neil Brown, I feel like, to save his job, needs to sell Ren Baker on the future, with stability being the greatest asset. Because, if you're 4-4, and I know that, again, the prospects of November with its schedule at Cincinnati, home for Baylor, home for UCF, on the road at Texas Tech, you're really staring down at best 8-4, sometimes somewhere in the ballpark of 7-5, maybe 6-6. Again, don't know what will happen with that Arizona game. So you might be 3-5, maybe, depending upon how these next 2 weeks go. You're staring at best, again, that Duke's Mayo Bowl reference, without achieving any of your goals. So, unfortunately, the mismanagement, and I don't know if I want to take the time to do all this again in this video, but the mismanagement I feel like I've chronicled over the course of the last 2 seasons of Garrett Green's development. Not going to him when West Virginia was 2-4 in 2021 with a terrible offensive line, needed a mobile quarterback. You were, again, staring down like the toilet bowl, and that's what West Virginia ended up getting at a 6-6 Jarrett Deggy-led team. Didn't go to him then because Jarrett Deggy and West Virginia beat Iowa State and then beat Texas, and for whatever reason, Neil Brown didn't trust him going into the offseason of 2022, so you spent all your NIL resources on JT Daniels, and you didn't start Garrett Green until the season was too late at that point in time. So mismanagement, I feel like, of the early career of Garrett Green. If it comes in point in time where 2024, you're not achieving, who's going to be satisfied with a 7-5 record in which, again, they get to a Duke's Mayo Bowl, play with a bunch of team with a bunch of opt-outs, expanded playoffs, so who cares about bowl games if you're finishing 8-5, not achieving any of the things you set out for this season, so it's just, throw that season out. Then start Nico Marchiol. Like, because the spring games now are glorified practices. That doesn't give you any sort of a barometer on your talent. I mean, pretty clearly, spring practice in the spring game means nothing. Means nothing. So then you go into the summer camp, and again, it's more because there's no preseason with college football. And, I know West Virginia's schedule, at least next season, sets up a little easier with one fewer Power 5 opponent, but you're still playing Pitt. I don't know if that's the first game of the season or third or something like that. But it's like quality reps in actual competition in Nico Marchiol's third year. If you're going to turn the reins over completely to him for his fourth year as starter, like, give it to him now. What more does he have to prove in relief? What he did in 2022 against Oklahoma State, what he did in 2023 against TCU and Texas Tech, what he did already this year earlier in that series or two that he played against Oklahoma State. Like, it's unfortunate that that's the way potentially that the Garrett Green career would have to close, but I just don't. You look more long term, longer term at the longevity of this program and what you could build on then for 2025 if you're not going to meet any sort of satisfactory goal. And I hate to have to say that, but like, we knew that was the potential of the schedule, whenever it released, that by Halloween you're going to know so much about this program that go out there and if you're betting on it, like, why not? I mean, Nico is not a bad quarterback. There's so much potential to him. And maybe that's just the shot in the arm. If you're not going to fire the head coach and you're not going to make any changes there at the leaders of the offense, then at least you can change the players. You're not going to change the coaching. You're going to switch out the players. And I don't see as if that needs to just be something dismissed that, only the couch quarterbacks who have 20/20 perfect hindsight can get to say. Like, the fact that Neil Brown in his post-game press conference is just completely dismissing the idea, it just shows again that he doesn't get it. He doesn't get it as an in-game coach. I'm grasping at straws of what does Neil Brown actually bring to the table for this program. Him individually. All that you can talk about organizationally and the leader of the program and all the changes that have happened over the last 6 years since Dana Holgerson's left, yes, can agree. The NIL, strength and conditioning, nutrition, having a general manager, fifth quarter program, new facilities, all of that cannot, at the end of the day, boil down to on-field success because of the head coach. So you have to cut the head off the snake to then move forward. And I don't want to go through the same thing that happened with Bob Huggins when he got fired, and it's just a mass exodus of players, and you're basically starting over from scratch. Like, that is my worst case fear, came to fruition, during this off season. So I would hate for West Virginia to be this buffet that the Penn States and Virginia Techs or Florida States or so on and so forth just go and start plucking off West Virginia's best players with future prospects. But I can't keep investing my time, energy, resources, everything in to see West Virginia lose to Pitt, to play horribly against Penn State, and to play that kind of blah football that is just so boring, and to see it lose again against Iowa State, and take the Iowa State name off. Like, it could be anyone. To lose in that fashion again, I just can't keep doing it. It's just, I'm losing years on my life, I feel like, at this point. And I mean, credit Iowa State. You might get 45 minutes in, it's like, man, he hasn't given any credit to Iowa State. But what would they do again? How bad would they get beat against Texas? How bad would they get beat against Oregon? How bad would they get beat against Oklahoma or Ohio State or LSU? Like, Iowa State's decent. I think and this is a year in which there's a lot of parity. Once you get outside, I feel like of maybe 6 to 8 programs, there's a lot of mid. I mean, Army and Navy are now both ranked, y'all. Like, Boise State is 16th in the country or something like that. Like, that's the kind of almost like 2007 like season that we're having this year. But they're not that like so good that I feel as if they were letter grades better than what West Virginia kind of performance West Virginia could have put up in this game. No way. No way. It was, I don't know. So thanks for tuning in for this video. Please like it so Mountaineer fans across YouTube can watch it. Love to hear your thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent, in the comments section. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your dog that I do this each and every week and have a lot of fun doing it, even when I'm talking like this kind of sob stories. Unfortunately, I'll be back later this week to preview West Virginia K-State. I hope you get some tickets, and then we can see each other in the parking lot and the tailgate. So thanks for tuning in, everybody. Let's go. Hail West Virginia.